Hey there and welcome to day 17. Today we're going to be covering stress and how to avoid burnouts and know where your limits are. Because the whole premises of Why Not 3 is to achieve a work-life balance with a peak productivity state, so where you can achieve peak performance. And you need to know where your limits are in order not to have those burnouts and then pretty much be super productive for 2 to 3 weeks or maybe even 1 year, and then 2 years where you're just figuring stuff out or getting back on the horse and stuff like that. You want to maintain it over a couple of years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, maybe even your whole life. That's the whole premises of Why Not 3, and that's why we're gonna uncover today simple techniques so that you know how to deal with stress when you're already too late and you're having all these stress symptoms that are hindering your peak productivity states. So it's actually very simple, and that's why this video is going to be just very short. The first one you already know. This is the silent day, and it's the first thing that I do whenever I hear a person that is struggling with something like a stress symptom. So first of all, what are stress symptoms, right? You're doing these silent days and maybe you don't even know what a stress symptom is. Stress symptoms are actually very funny in the way they show themselves. For me, it was my breathing was very bad. I just had hyperventilation constantly. I would wake up with it and I would go to bed with it. And then after a very stressful period had passed or a big project had passed, it would take me a month or two to recover my breathing to a normal state. Then I have clients that had rashes, just inexplicable rashes all over their hands and body sometimes. And then I have other clients that just seem to go to the bathroom all the time or have stomach problems and can't seem to take certain things like caffeine. So it's really funny how it shows out. The big issue though is that if you let it be, your body will train itself to think this is the normal state to let stress out, which is why you might be struggling with some kind of disease that keeps returning back just because of stress. And then whatever you take pills, it doesn't seem to work or only work temporarily. That's because you're treating symptoms and not the actual problem. So we need to focus on treating the actual problem, which is the silent day that I talked about. And that's the second one that I only share in my book and whenever I can, but it's really hard to share in a video, on a short video specifically, because it's really hard to understand unless you've gone through it. And the second thing is you need to be able to be debriefed, preferably every day. Now, what is a debrief? Many of you that have been to specific conferences in an organization called ISEC that have a security background, maybe a military background, will understand what a debrief is. A debrief is when you've done something, a mission or a conference or something, and at the end the leader takes you into a room and debriefs you. He goes over the entire thing and makes sure that everything is in order, and preferably he also de-rolls you, because you had a certain role at this conference, you had a certain role during your military mission, and now you have to be de-rolled to go back to your family and houses and partner and pretty much be a normal human being again. That's the value of debriefing. Now, when you're constantly in peak performance, you're putting a lot of stress on your body and a lot of things seem to be happening. And a lot of high entrepreneurs, high achievers that are entrepreneurs are just thinking they have to do it all alone and by themselves, because for the last maybe 5 or 10 years, they've all done it by themselves. Maybe you're the same like that. I'm sure that I was like that. I was always thinking, well, I've done it always by myself, so I'll debrief myself, I'll just deal with it, I'll reflect with it, go to some 10-day retreat and think that if I deal with my demons that way, it'll be good. But we've learned in the Mindset Week about the power of consistency. And the power of consistency means that you have to do it every day or every week at least once, forever, and that will compound to have a better effect than if you just do a 10-day retreat or decide to kind of go into the problems whenever they present themselves in a really bad way, because you become really sad suddenly. So we want to prevent something like that happening. We don't want to deal with it once it arises. So you have to preferably actually debrief yourself every day. But, and here comes the kicker, like I said, most of us are always lonely in our jobs because we're entrepreneurs. We're dealing with founding like companies, recruitment, hiring employees, training, all this stuff. So what you should actually do, and this is what the top entrepreneurs are doing, and this, you've probably seen this, they have partners. They have a partner that they confide in that actually knows a lot about them. Or they have accountability buddies that they can call up in case of emergencies and kind of just, I call this mental vomiting. You just kind of have a vomit round where literally it's not complaining, it's literally everything that just gets out. And your partner then just asks, according to the 3-level debriefing method, what's happening, and goes to the core of it, so that at the end, you're actually completely okay with what happened. Imagine you have a really stressful day. Have you properly dealt with it, or have you gone to the surface and just kind of scratched it and thought it was okay? And that's why you have to do it with someone else, because that person is kind of a third party. He'll be able to go really deep because he or she will see whether or not you're actually already done with debriefing. So preferably, of course, you would want someone that has very high EQ, so they can see based on your emotions whether you're satisfied with what happened, whether you accepted it, if you have something bad, whether you've actually spilled all beans or just holding back because of a lack of trust. So like I said, you can have an accountability buddy, you can have a partner. We're gonna go a little bit deeper. I'm gonna give you the 3-level debriefing and how it works. The first level of the debrief is always what happens. You just talk about what happened that day. The second level of the debriefing is, once you know what happened, the person will ask you, how did you feel in that specific instance? Because as you will be talking, you're gonna get some kind of emotion around some kind of thing that happened. And if your partner has a good EQ level, he'll be picking up on that and asking you the question, how did you feel about that moment? And you'll answer. And normally that's where the vomiting starts, the mental vomiting. Now that is done, at the end of everything, the partner asks, how can you apply this into everyday life? So now you have a three-level debriefing. You're actually taking something out and learning something from the experience that you had. If you do this every day, then over a long span, 2-3 months, you're gonna start seeing some kind of mental recovery. You're gonna start seeing that you can deal with more because you're not pushing stuff. You're actually using the stuff and kind of getting it out and accepting it. And that's the most important part. Most of the stress symptoms happen because you're just burying a lot of stuff, and then it just compounds the other way, the negative way, and just blasts open, and your body can't kind of get it out anywhere, so it just gets it out in breathing, rashes, or whatever. So always remember, use your silent day consistently and do the 3-level debriefing consistently. And that's the main message of today. Consistently. If you do this once or twice, you do a 10-day retreat and you think that's fixed, we've seen it. The power of consistency is what matters, and that is what's going to take you over the long term. Because you're in this together with me. You chose to be in this industry. You chose to go on a marathon. You didn't choose to go for a sprint. You chose to go for a marathon. So treat it with the respect of a marathon. Don't treat it as if it's a sprint and go to a 10-day retreat, 20-day retreat, 30-day retreat, thinking that will fix the problem over the long term. You want to do it consistently. I can't stress that enough. That's a really short example of 3-level debriefing and silent day working together to get you to a normal state. Like I said yesterday, it's a very disciplined state. If you really want to fix the core issues, it'll take you 2 to 3 months. You can go to my blog post about the silent day, which you've probably already read because we've covered that in a previous video, and you'll see in there it takes a couple of months. But it is the fix that will get you back on that horse over the long-term period. I've experimented with a ton of doctors, ton of biohackers, read a ton of scientific papers, ton of psychological papers, and the funny thing is that eventually it wasn't the supplements, it wasn't the gear, it wasn't anything. It was literally those two simple things that we've been probably doing for tens of thousands of years, which is debriefing with our partner and taking a consistent silent day. For tomorrow, we're going to be talking about wealth, trackers and systems and wealth. Specifically, we're going to be talking about positive tracking and the power of meetups. But that's for tomorrow. So I'll see you tomorrow for day 18. I hope you enjoyed today. Let me know in the Facebook group what you thought about it or in the email. And I'll see you soon for day 18.